The Roman Rite comes in two forms, the ordinary and the extraordinary form. While there are exemplary bishops, pastors, and dioceses, why are both forms often not offered as part of a regular seminary curriculum or on the mass schedules of many cathedrals? Is it really a question of demand? Some people say, if you build it, they will come.
I think that there's still, I believe, a lot of misunderstanding about the extraordinary form of the liturgy. And because of some of the misunderstanding, I think there still is present a little bit in the church. Maybe fear is too strong of a word, but a little bit of a fear of the impact that the extraordinary form may have on the life of the church. I think for some, they simply see it as a turning back of the clock, of a seeking refuge in something traditional and familiar in difficult times. I've heard this explanation that in times of great uncertainty, which certainly the world and even the church has today, people seek refuge in something secure, something that is fixed, and it gives them comfort. But it's much more than that. And I think that Pope Benedict's intention in allowing for a greater use of the extraordinary form, the traditional Latin Mass in the Church, was really to move forward the liturgical renewal that is still so desperately needed in the Church. I don't think there should be any fear of allowing tradition to flourish. He himself said that which was once considered beautiful and holy and sacred to people of past ages can now not suddenly become otherwise, or even, he says, even harmful. And that's very sad when I think that there are many who believe that the flourishing, the presence of the traditional Latin Mass, the extraordinary form, is somehow harmful to the Church. How can something that has nourished the faith of the generations, that nourished the lives of the saints, quite honestly, that nourished the faith life of my parents and my grandparents, how can we say that this is harmful for the Church or bad for the Church? And I think that hopefully as time goes on, there will be a relaxing of these anxieties around the extraordinary form. I have often said that I, and this is a bold statement I know, but I think that every priest should learn the extraordinary form. Whether or not he would ever actually celebrate it himself or not for the people, I know when I learned the extraordinary form, it had a tremendous impact on my own understanding and appreciation of the ordinary form, and had an impact on my own celebration of the ordinary form, linking it more deeply with the traditional practice. So I think that, the motu proprio, our Holy Father said, where there are stable groups of the faithful who ask for the Mass, then a bishop and priest should do everything we can to provide for their spiritual needs, which we try to do. But I think that as that happens, more will be attracted to it, first coming perhaps out of curiosity, but then maybe falling in love with it, as so many have, especially young people. As I say, it's amazing to me how many young people have fallen in love with the extraordinary form. I think that says a lot.
The USCCB's page on the extraordinary form says, "It is not certain what the future holds, but for the present, the Church hopes that the two forms of the one Roman Rite may provide a mutual spiritual enrichment for the faithful and promote the communion of the whole Church as an expression of unity in diversity. This implies a temporary nature of sorts. It is not certain what the future holds. Can you provide an outlook for the existence of two forms of the one Roman Rite, and will the vetus ordo be preserved?"
Well, of course, I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't predict what the future for the extraordinary form is, and the ordinary form for that matter. I don't think that our Holy Father, Pope Benedict XVI, intended for the greater use and availability of the extraordinary form, simply to be a temporary measure. I think that I think if you read carefully the motu proprio itself, if you read carefully the letter that he wrote accompanying the motu proprio to the world's bishops, if you read other things that he has said in other contexts, including in his most recent book, The Last Testament, in his own words, you see that I believe the usus antiqui, or the older usage of the Mass, will probably always have a rightful place in the Church. I think what is more likely to happen is that the ordinary form will be enriched by the extraordinary form, and as ongoing liturgical renewal happens and reform happens, I think that the extraordinary form, the traditional form of the Mass, will become sort of the touchstone, the thing against what we measure what is going to happen in ongoing liturgical reform. And I think that was really Pope Benedict's intention. He speaks about this interior reconciliation in the heart of the Church, that the Church must reconcile with her past, and that there cannot be a rupture between what had gone before and what has come to be in the ordinary form, at least in the way it is celebrated in some places, that the Church somehow needs to reconcile with her past. And I think the more likely thing to happen is that the presence of the extraordinary form will continue to be a driving force, if you will, for the renewal that needs to take place, I believe, in the ordinary form of the Mass. Now, there can be some mutual enrichment the other way as well. I mean, in the extraordinary form, the addition of new saints, which have been declared by the Church since the Missal of 1962, some of the options of other prefaces for the Mass that are available. I mean, these things can also enrich the extraordinary form, but I don't read this as a temporary time, and that at some point the extraordinary form will be set aside. The Holy Father, Pope Benedict, made the great point in Summorum Pontificum that it was never juridically abrogated, and that, at least in principle, its celebration had always been permitted. And I think he's making a point there, that I don't ever see that it would be completely abrogated.